Well, today I'm putting together a little segment. I'm going to head down to the library and go talk to the librarians here and see about getting some stuff done for getting a little package put together of what I've been through over the last 2 years. Because it's off to this new lawyer I got. The lawyer's been, the new lawyer just doesn't want to listen to anything I say. Essentially, they're going out and solving this on their own and not listening to any of my concerns or my costs or anything else, which seems to be about typical these days. That since COVID, I think the jab has caused people to go absolutely insanely stupid, quite frankly. I think they realize that they're, whatever this jab has done to people, it has created a unified, almost I don't know what way to put it. Like, it's almost a unified sociopathic behavior towards other citizens. I've been analyzing it, what they've done to their own, essentially. Humans treating humans are radically bad, which I don't think the average trucker who was involved in the convoy agreed with. And that's why a lot of us kind of got involved. And, it was all about hugs and caring. And you got to learn to really, truly care about each other. Not harm each other by keeping others in rats in cages situations. This is, we're watching suicides in the droves. We had one right outside of our own courthouse here in Kitchener, where a guy blew himself up outside the courts because of decisions the courts were making towards others. Him, probably specifically, is my guess, or his family unit. Now, I can understand a man getting so upset about his family and radical behavior towards him to the point where he would blow himself up if it was done over excessive periods of time, inhumanely, which would be considered cruel and unusual punishment. I wonder if anybody has approached that man and his case and handled it after his death concerning what he had gone through with the courts. That's a severe issue. And did anybody from this police service board send in police to truly investigate the situation of that happening, in my city? Or are these politicians and people that are in charge of this stuff, like the chief of police himself, are they naive enough to believe that the court system couldn't do this to a man? There's some interesting questions to pose there. Oh, there's the bad smoke coming out. One of the things I did that's really interesting today is I was going through a lot of my old pictures that I've uploaded online to Amazon Pictures or the Prime Pictures there. And going through some of these uploaded pictures from my last phone has been absolutely astonishing. I don't even know what happened to my last 2 or 3 phones. I think like the people Nicole sent in grabbed my phones and destroyed them. So that's like 3 phones that I had destroyed. 1 computer. You can't make up the nonsense that of the things I've had destroyed and that have gone to shit. And then been forced into a homeless situation where I'm living out of my car. Now, living out of a car in wintertime is extremely hard. I literally live out of a Shoppers Drug Mart parking lot for the most part, so I can get internet between this Shoppers Drug Mart and behind me is one of the nicest restaurants that my grandmother worked at in Kitchener. It's a charcoal steakhouse. My grandmother worked there for years as a waitress. Good tips. She used to come home and count her tips at the counter. It was amazing what she could pull in the night, and every week I would sit and watch her as a child come in and go and pull in tips. But one of the interesting things is the wear and tear on my soul and my body, and just the physical wear on me as an individual. You can see the wear, the hair loss now after 45 years after COVID. I never had this like this before. So it's stress. It's just the extremest amounts of stress that you could ever be subjected to. I'm a very level-headed guy overall. I've been trained to be level-headed in the most extreme of situations. Everything from my, grandfather's war generation, training me to handle problems in a physical manner, which I've tried to avoid at all costs at this point. When people do this to you, you go hit them. And that's the way my grandparents' generation was, the greatest generation. And, the silent generation is included in that. They were a different breed and would handle things very erratically. I was taught that way even in high school to go, even one of my auto shop teachers when I was young encouraged us to go rattle some cars or threaten cars of individuals if they were threatening us. I had a principal that had radical new methods of, we're going to expel everybody and suspend everybody, and if students can't attend class or if they show up late, they have 3 detentions immediately for lateness, and every time they miss a detention, that doubles the detentions. So, this guy would have had me in detention my whole life. And, afternoon detention and after school detentions. I literally have to, if you're going to pee, it's very difficult to go outside at night and pee. They shut down the washroom next door. I'm right beside a petrol can here next door. The fuel prices radically raise and lower in the daytime every day, showing the consistent greed of some of these major companies. Petro-Canada itself, the truck stop out on the highway, actually stopped me from showering there as a truck driver. They said, well, you're not bringing in your fuel card. You can't shower here without a fuel card anymore. So I was actually out of showers until I discovered Ray of Hope, which I was complaining to my Ontario Works officer and my social worker there, or officer, whatever they want to consider themselves. Just nonsense with this officer term. Anyways, and one of the other social workers, and they include me into Ray of Hope where I can get a shower there. So I've been going downtown to shower, just to get a shower here and there. I had one yesterday, so I feel this is about as clean as I get. But I go an average about a week. Can't afford to drive down there and back off 343 that Ontario Works gives me a week. Keeping in mind, I was not living like this until the death of my mother, which was probably a vaccine death. It was a vaccine death as far as I was concerned. I was obviously there 2.5 weeks after she took Pfizer. She dropped dead. Dan Hartman's trial is coming up. He's got his appeal in currently. Right now, we're waiting for the ruling. It's going to be 3 months. They're going to review this and get it back to us. It's always the time. Oh, maybe our ruling that gives them time to absorb that this could happen. There's a lot of psychology to these trials. Now, one of the biggest rulings that has gone on is Justice Mosley's ruling that stated the Emergency Measures Act, the threshold of the definitions to determine that the act, whether it can be implemented or hasn't implemented, wasn't met, is what Mosley ruled. So Trudeau, when he implemented the Emergency Measures Act to have all these conditions imposed on us, as truck drivers going into the COVID crisis, we were in the right, essentially, in protesting that with Mosley's ruling. I want that clearly understood. I was also the guy who ordered down the borders to disrupt the trade and try and cost the government $6 million because they would not address us at all. This week I put in a phone call to my mayor's office concerning this new bylaw bill. The police department's trying to charge the city, which is inevitably my taxes, for bylaw calls in the amount of $576,000, which is a significant tax increase to each individual in this city. I phoned the mayor's office and said, I've been put in a homeless situation by the police. They're the ones who threw me out of the house, not the sheriff, which is supposed to be. The court sheriff is supposed to serve me and explain to me I have 7 days to vacate premises. That wasn't what happened. Lawyers showed up on the 7th. First, some guy came and changed the locks while I was away getting fired at work. Coincidentally. I don't believe in those coincidences. Lawyers were in contact with that workplace back and forth and guaranteed that they probably affected my firing, is my guess. My termination affected it, is my guess. It's going to be a very difficult thing to prove. But under the circumstances, when you're sitting there, I got an investigator going in and she did ask and she said, well, they're saying it's coincidental. Well, I said, oh, yeah, coincidental. I said, is it going to be coincidental too when the CRA Freedom of Information Act is released and my sister has obtained where I was working? Is that coincidental that my sister would do that? And then they had it to her lawyers and I'm getting terminated at the same time? Too many coincidental incidences. Conducted against one man that are very extreme. We're not talking just, they take away my employment. They're saying they've given 3 or 4 reasons now. They're making excuses. So, interestingly enough, I was coming across pictures today of me pre-COVID. Even going through the deaths of my parents and the stresses I was under at that time period. It's not easy having your parents, experience cancer. I just have a guy over here. His name is Harut. He approached me and said, are you okay? He recognizes people not being okay now because he's dealing with it with his own parents. And I said, yeah, I'm not in good shape, but I know I'm not. I'm having a hard time. I'm living out of a car. What do you want, Here, man, I'm going to see if I can help you. You get back on your feet. I said, well, I'm trying. I'm a truck driver. I'm one of the truck drivers, in fact, that got involved with the protesting and was in support of any businesses that would open here. I've met with and tried to support every cause concerning our protests as truck drivers. I am one of the truck drivers. You were a truck? Yeah, man. Here's my pictures. Here's some of the people I've hung out with. Here's me with Big Red, the lead truck coming across the west. I went out and had my picture taken with it after the fact. I was downtown lots, but I wouldn't take pictures. I didn't want to be nailed. And at the time, our phones were going so wonky, and the government was on us with spy planes and all kinds of great stuff they admitted to in Congress. Not normal to be spied on by your own government's military. So these are extreme circumstances, not just slight. We were having our phone conversations just go mid-conversation when we were discussing important strategies and things with the convoy and things to be conducting online. Our Meta platforms, pretty much any Instagram posts we were posting or any postings at the time period we made concerning our maneuvers or what should be done to help combat the government and their extreme actions against us, were just dropping instantly. Our Facebook pages were being removed radically. Oh, their Facebook page is gone. Your You're a terrorist. Terrorist, wow, that's pretty impressive. I always thought I was Canadian. I was born and raised here, and my family's fought and died for this country. Yeah, just because I make a stand at protesting, which is supposed to be my protected charter right. Now, I've been labeled such severe things as a terrorist by my government, terrorist. And in articles even in the States at the time period. There's a Waterloo area professor who was telling people in North Carolina through a newspaper article that we were militarily trying to take over government. Well, that's ridiculous nonsense. These guys and the extreme lies they were willing to tell. What we were is a pile of people trying to inspire a non-confidence vote to get Trudeau out of there because he was killing people, quite frankly. And trying to impose some pretty drastic measures on people, including us as truck drivers. I have never seen it, so police will effectively take away the life-giving fuel from truck drivers. The only thing that they get their heat from is that heating oil and that fuel in those trucks to kill truck drivers, to kill my coworkers. I want it clearly understood how serious that is, because if you did that to a neighbor, that would be considered trying to commit murder against your neighbor by shutting off the fuel to their house or taking away the fuel to their car and leaving them stranded. Trucks require 2 lanes to pull in and out. Even if the truck drivers wanted to get out to get fuel and come back or just leave permanently, they couldn't have done it. There's 1 lane in, 1 lane out. So some of these truck drivers that were in there that wanted to get out, they couldn't. Guaranteed there was both going on. There was some that knew it was time to leave. The government, when they're sending in spy planes, they don't want any part of that. They don't want any part of what's going on. None of them truly did to be there even in the first place. They just went because they knew something had to be done. And when they came and said, you're going to get vaccinated, and we're watching people die of the vaccine in droves, it's pretty common sense now at this point in time that the vaccines were killing people, and most reasonable people recognize that. And it doesn't take a doctor, like they were suggesting at the time period, to determine that. Regular people can determine that their own family died after a vaccine, if it's a significantly short period of time after they took the vaccine. It doesn't take a doctor to know that. Like they were suggesting. Are you a doctor? No. A doctor I was talking to in a meeting last night, one of the main doctors, who was a hero to many of us truck drivers because he came out risking his license to do so at the time period. They were pulling licenses on any individual who spoke out, and any individual who dared to stand against Trudeau and his ultimate power tripping. Ontario, and this is the Ontario Licensing Board, so Doug Ford's government. This is my Conservatives. I want this clearly understood that I am not with Doug Ford either after that. And I'm not with any political party. I recognize their extreme measures against citizens of this country. And they should be in jail for this, as far as I'm concerned. Treason is acts against their own citizens. And what would reasonably be expected by citizens who are free. Bodily autonomy. The right to choice of what I inject into my body, not being coerced and forced with the threats of you won't be able to feed yourself, you will be unemployed, which I am now, because you wouldn't take this. You stand against us. You have a right to be unemployed too, then. How dare you point out that this is killing people? The government is purposefully, and the legal system is purposefully I'll address some of these lawsuits. I want that clearly pointed out, Dan Hartman's lawsuit. The American lawsuits that are going on against Moderna and Pfizer and many of these Canadians who've been allowed to sue because our system isn't the same as the American system. But our government assured them they would get immunity from lawsuits. They threw the first level of court out on that principle. But here's the thing. Our top law in this country is supposed to be the Charter. It guarantees in that Charter a fair and impartial system. If these vaccines were causing deaths, that is definitely not considered fair and impartial. This is death we're talking about onto our individual citizens. Like police tried to impose from stealing fuel. The citizens reacted and brought in tons of canisters. Now, a lot of them were fake, filled with water. It wasn't the same of having our fuel that was bought and paid for. This was theft by our own police from citizens. They had no just cause to do this. And now that the Emergency Measures Act has been taken out, there is definitely no just cause for what police did. I want that clearly understood. Went through for law and security, went through to be a cop. I wouldn't have been morally or ethically able to do it. What those officers did in those circumstances. OPP bowed out of doing it and explained exactly to the public why they weren't doing it. And explained that fact. That is taking away sustenance from drivers. Sustaining life. Taking away from sustaining life. If you did it to your neighbor, you'd be charged with left for dead, aggravated assault, level 3. You would be charged with level 2. It wasn't assault. A lot of the times when they were trying to take the fuel, people were grabbing the fuel and they were assaulting back and forth just to try and keep the fuel. They knew that the fuel could cause death, a lot of these men, if they got it out of them. They had propane canisters that were heating whole eating structures, places that they were sheltered for eating because the temperatures were extremely cold. So guys literally built food consumption areas where they could cook and prepare food for large numbers. They even fed the homeless. This is the kindness that the government, the police show. They're literally taking away the heat from the homeless that are already in risky situations in those temperatures. And they were giving them shelter. And heating shelters right in the core so they weren't having to travel to some of these nonsensical places that are overrun with disease and everything else. Bouchard himself got disease from a shower at a facility at a truck stop. Bouchard, the famous head of one of the first leaders of the Bloc Québécois, died of flesh-eating disease. And he claimed it was from a community shower, or communal shower, basically. Trucker shower. It's a truck stop. So you can imagine the struggles truckers were experiencing with understanding these things. They're trying to keep things cleanly for a mass protest. They had one store open up and to give them access to the bathrooms. That's it, one store that I was aware of. That's it. There were supposed to be porta potties everywhere, but they, of course, there was a few I think that made it out there, but I think it was full in minutes. I think with the crowds that were there. So it was a ridiculous endeavor in trying to get in and out to get porta potties. The government was supposed to be, helping to organize and helping to be cooperative with such a big protest coming in. I don't think they were at all. I think they pretended to be, but there was some issues going on behind the scenes with it that obviously could cause health issues, major issues. Police taking fuel was the biggest thing. I've had the same thing. like the government here, this is what I have to heat, is this heater right here. It's a big money heater. Very efficient heater. It uses propane. If I keep it on low, it's enough to probably sustain my life, to keep a comfortable living temperature where I'm just wearing 2 layers of jackets like this. My feet are still freezing cold currently, and I got a blanket on, like the warmest blanket I have. Right here, this is the warmest blanket I have, and my feet are cold. Freezing cold. You can see the temperatures out here. You can see. It's what I've been dealing with all week. Masts, piles of snow, have to move in the middle of the night for the plows, I'm trying to get work. I have applied to literally millions of jobs. Like so many I can't even count them all. If I could park this truck at a trucking parking lot and go out over the road with baby. And baby, you can see how disheveled baby is. Hi baby, are you disheveled? Yeah, your nails are long, your fur is unkempt. I try and cut the fur away from your eyes. I'm not perfect at it. We need a groomer. Look at how matted your hair is, and it's almost like dreads. It's so bad. I've taken her for 2 $14 showers over the winter. That's all I've been able to afford to shower when we're struggling for heat. The Ontario Works is so low for homeless. It's $343 is what they've given me. It's all they give me. And it doesn't even supply fuel for 2 weeks of time, essentially. I've been working off of charity of these construction workers and friends, other truckers that know I'm in dire straits, that have come and just thrown me $40-$60. Hey man, fuck you, 60. You did good with that border ordering closed. And I don't like how the other truckers threw you out to the wayside. Because a lot of guys want the fame of it and everything else. I wasn't like that. I didn't want fame. I just wanted to get the things back to normal and truly get people to stop from dying. If they listen to me about when my mother died, Dan Hartman's kid probably would have died. If police were doing the proper job and coming out and having a true integrity that they claim to have with being an officer, they would be coming out and saying, listen, people might be dying from this. Please, public, stop. I'm going to arrest these politicians who are saying otherwise. They don't have the authority to dictate what the science is. And as soon as that was being conducted, these officers should have been harassing in the same nature towards them. But this could be treasonous, what you're doing and saying here, if it enacts the death of individuals. Enacting the death of individuals would be to the point of treason, folks. I'm trying to save lives as a trucker, not take them. And we've been treated like we're the treasonous ones. We're the terrorists. When in fact, it's the government that was the terrorist in this circumstance. And the terror they were imposing was allowed to be conducted because we're in charge. Minority government even. Where was the Singh dick to say this is extreme? I'm an ethical party of unionists and a Western party, in fact. This guy wasn't Western. He wasn't ethical. He doesn't even understand his role of being in charge of the party he's in charge of. That's how screwed up he is. He was looking for a retirement package and maintaining his leadership of that party so he could get his bigger package so he could retire with his nice gold watches and his Maseratis along with Trudeau. Their wealth increased during COVID. How was yours as an individual? Is yours doing real good? I know these grocery stores, the Shoppers and the Loblaws, they were getting record profits. They could jack up bacon to whatever they want to do. For the rest of us, we were living out of vehicles, pissing in jars, having to take them down to the back of sideways, highways, and pour them out away from the scent of other people, trying to live as civilized as possible. Can't pee. I try and go pee out in the cold. I can't pee because it's so cold. It won't let you pee. Your rinky dink shrinks up. Your dinky dink shrinks up. You can't pee. You're going to pee all over yourself. Pooping in buckets, which I have a bucket in the back. I have to dig it out and sit and warm it up if I have to poop, if it's in the middle of the night, because I can't get into a bathroom down here. Shelters close down at night that allow us bathrooms and stuff. They do. That's how ridiculous it is. And the homeless shelters that are allowing for housing don't allow dogs. So I have to go all the way to Windsor if I want a dog shelter, which they pretty much leave you hanging dry and you're living out of a vehicle. It's basically what they're telling you. That's how convenient these shelters are. Ray of Hope actually allows the dogs in at the one section and keeps it quiet. Nobody complains. It's a good group of Canadian style citizens, and there are good people down there. And there is an honor amongst the homeless that is impressive. Sometimes there are some crazies. There is, but there's also the ones that are just in. There's the disabled that are down there that are thrown to the wayside. It's a lot of mental, like brain damaged people that have been dropped on their heads as children that are down there. It's that. It's the people that are just rejected from the mainstream of society. And some of them are really good. Some of them are very honorable, good people. And have their own ways, their own nature to helping each other. One girl was in a legal family matter issue, and I asked her, I said, well, do you need some help with laws? I'm a law and security grad. I can tell you what I know on things. I'm not a lawyer, but I can provide you with some different information for some legal services and stuff too. I gave her pro bono, and told her to send her paper in, and the court dates her. She's got a summons to appear. Didn't sound like a good circumstance. Sounds like they were accusing her of a nonsense. And some serious nonsense, which could skyrocket. So, well, I'm okay though, right? She'd keep asking me. I'd say, well, I can't say you are or aren't. Go talk to the lawyers. It's not my place to say. All I can advise you is what I know as an officer, from an officer's perspective, about what they could do and what they can't do. Didn't look like they were arresting her for periods of. They were worried about her harming anybody, so I don't think she's a bad person for sure. Lots of nonsense goes on. 33 minutes. This is my 33-minute segment today. I'm a few days over a year of living out of this vehicle. I've been through 2 winters. I was thrown out February 7th. It was the day they threw me out. They sent in a goon and the police. And the police came and enacted what the goon was saying and basically said, you're out of here. Haha, you're out of your own home that you own 52% of. Interesting how that works. First, the only thing that I ever signed, which was a legal document, which is the arbitrator's document, that this home was 52% mine. Apparently, they can make any order they want after that and keep going and going and going. I've signed that on the recommendation of my lawyer, even though I argued it for days. I didn't want to sign that bullshit. It's not what my parents would have wanted. It's not lawyers being involved isn't what my parents wanted. They wanted an estate lawyer to handle this and get it as closed as fast as possible and to treat both of their children equally, which isn't what my sister wanted or intended from the start of this. I wanted her to be treated equal. I wanted a place over my head, a roof over my head. I wanted a job, of course. That's the reasonable necessities that a person would want as an individual, and I believe all those things have been affected by me, or by the opposing counsel and by these lawyers. Affected towards me, I should say. That's what they have affected. They've affected my life so drastically that I'm living out of a fucking vehicle with a dog. Is there problems there? I would say so. And how do you correct those problems? I don't know. Apparently, lawyers won't do anything in this country anymore. It's perfectly acceptable. They just turn that away when it's their own doing it. No bias to see here, folks. Bias in this country is apparently completely allowed. My legal clinic can be run by the same arbitrator who gives me the orders to be living this way. It's my only low-income clinic. I go to the neighboring city and they turn me away. I explained the conflict of interest issue to that neighboring city. I go to the neighboring city next to that. I go to Toronto's clinic and explain the same thing, and they turn me away. Isn't that interesting? I asked where these places get their funding so I can go sue who the hell's funding this nonsense. Apparently that isn't acceptable to ask who's funding that nonsense.